Hello and welcome to a special bonus episode of YXE Underground. My name is Eric Anderson and it has been a busy week for the podcast. Last Monday, I dropped an episode that took listeners to Beaver Creek Conservation Area to enjoy a Dark Skies event put on by the Meewasin Valley Authority. On Thursday, I spoke with Katayoon Navabi about the Diaspora Film Festival that she was helping organize at the Remai Modern. I saw a great documentary yesterday as part of the film festival called Allihopa, the Dalkurd Story. My congrats to Kati and her team for putting on such a wonderful event. Today, I'm sharing a conversation about an upcoming fundraising event that has raised more than $3 million since 2007. Choc'la Cure is a non-profit organization dedicated to raising funds to purchase cancer treatment equipment used at the Saskatoon Cancer Centre. It formed 18 years ago and has impacted the lives of so many people in Saskatoon and throughout our province. Choc'la Cure's annual Gala event takes place on November 7th at Dutch Growers, and I was able to learn more about the organization and its impact on the Saskatoon Cancer Centre thanks to Kim Swatecki, Breanne Cooper, and Dr. John DeCoteau. Kim is a volunteer on the Choc'la Cure committee and a previous guest on the podcast way back in season 1. Breanne is the chair of the Choc'la Cure committee, and Dr. John DeCoteau is the medical director of the Advanced Diagnostic Research Lab at the Saskatoon Cancer Centre. Now, the goal of this year's gala is to raise money for a new piece of medical equipment for the Cancer Centre, which Dr. DeCoteau explains in fascinating detail in our conversation. I met Kim, Breanne, and Dr. DeCoteau at Citizen Café a few weeks ago and learned so much from them. I will put a link in the show notes to the gala event in case you are interested in learning more about the event, which I think you might be after hearing our conversation. We sat down at a table just around the corner from the kitchen, and I started by asking Breanne how Choc'la Cure came to be.
Choc'la Cure was started in 2007 by a group of ladies who wanted to make a difference in their community. They had all been impacted by cancer either directly or indirectly with family or loved ones, and they wanted to give back to their community. And so it started in 2007, so this is our 19th campaign. We had a couple of years where there was no gala, of course, because of COVID, but every gala that we have held has been held at Dutch Growers in Saskatoon. So we're very grateful for the support that they've given us. And our committee is unique because we are 100% volunteer run. So we have weekly meetings kind of in the months leading up to Choc'la Cure, and everyone takes their role. But yeah, we are completely volunteer run. So every dollar that we raise goes directly to purchasing equipment for the Saskatoon Cancer Centre that stays right here in Saskatoon.
How did all three of you become involved then in this wonderful organization?
I became involved. I was actually invited as an honored guest to speak at Choc'la Cure in 2015. And I was just inspired by the ambition and the dedication of the Choc'la Cure committee to create such a magical evening. It does not seem like you're in a greenhouse when you're in at the gala at Choc'la Cure. They completely transform it, and I was just inspired. I had gone through cancer treatment of my own the previous year and was looking for a way to also give back. So I found that this would be a really excellent way to give back to the Saskatoon Cancer Centre because a lot of my treatments were held there, and the committee was very welcoming, and when I asked, they very gladly said, yes, come and join us, we'd love to have you. So I've been there since.
Do you remember what it was like giving your speech at the event?
A little nerve-wracking because there were 300 to 400 people at the event, and I'd never spoken in front of that many people before, but it was also humbling and extremely heartwarming because the support of the guests at Choc'la Cure after was just so kind. Like, I felt like I was like wrapped in a hug there with all the support. So.
Well, that must have felt nice.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. John, how did you become involved in the organization?
Well, I'm not really involved directly in the organization. Our lab does cancer diagnostics for the province. And as I said, we've been sponsored by Choc'la Cure in the past and this year. So we've hosted Choc'la Cure members to come and see our lab, but I'm not actually directly part of the organization, although very appreciative for them and all the help they've given our lab and how important they are to cancer treatment in the province, actually. Yeah.
I first became involved in Choc'la Cure in 2010. That summer before, I was a volunteer for Mike Babcock Day, which Saskatoon held in support of this Children's Hospital Foundation. And Shelley Gregg, who was our former chair, was also helping that summer. And so she and I got to talking, and I knew her through her boys from high school days. And so after we were done Mike Babcock Day, I just asked her if Choc'la Cure was looking for more volunteer members. So I started out kind of overseeing the silent auction, and then Shelley passed away from cancer in 2022. So since then, we've had one gala, and so I was the chair of our gala in 2024, and then again this year.
Okay. As chair of the gala, what all goes into making this magical big night?
There are many things that go into our Choc'la Cure evening. Our gala is kind of our major event of the year, but throughout our yearly campaigns, there are also different fundraising events that take place. So every January we partner with the Husky men's hockey team and Darla and Marty Smuck. So their son Cody Smuck played for the Huskies and passed away from cancer as well. So they host a fundraiser in support of Choc'la Cure every year at one of the Husky hockey games. So there's a silent auction, there's Chuck-a-Puck, and Darla does a ton of work to get that event up and running and getting all the donations for that. And then our Choc'la Cure committee comes on board day of to help with all of the day of tasks for that fundraiser.
It's striking to me how there's so many people who cancer has impacted their lives, but it seems like within your circles there's this desire to want to give back in some way. Is that like what do you think that says about the community here in Saskatoon, especially the community that's been impacted by cancer? What do you think that says?
I think it just goes to show that it doesn't matter who you are. Like, cancer affects anybody at any time, and I think almost everybody can have a connection to that, and just knowing that the impact it has on not just the patient but the people that surround the patient, the families, the friends, and the rest of the community, I think that really shows how much we want to give those patients and their families hope and a better future.
Something I think that's unique to our committee also is that we get kind of a wish list from the Saskatoon Cancer Centre of what needs they feel they have that are not being funded by the government. And so every year, depending on, there's various levels of costs for different pieces of equipment, and our mandate for Choc'la Cure is to purchase equipment at the Saskatoon Cancer Centre to treat cancer in men, women, and children. So every year they give us kind of their wish list, and along with the Cancer Foundation Saskatchewan, we kind of sit down to decide what is of the greatest need based on how much we feel we are going to raise in that year. And some years we have had campaigns that have run over a few years if the piece of equipment is larger. But I think the fact that we are purchasing something tangible that is going to be implemented as soon as they have the equipment and the training is completed for patients at the Saskatoon Cancer Centre, and that serves really patients all across Saskatchewan, mostly Saskatoon and north of in the northern parts of our province, but there are people from other parts of the province that use the Saskatoon Cancer Centre also, so it reaches a vast population.
Yeah. John, you mentioned how your organization has been, had this wonderful relationship with Choc'la Cure. Can you explain a little bit to listeners, like how you and your colleagues have benefited from the relationship?
Sure, yeah. So we launched the lab about 12 years ago, and the mandate was to, create an opportunity for Saskatchewan to repatriate cancer diagnostic tests that were going out of the province and to develop our own and basically keep pace with, the quick advances in the field of molecular genetic testing of cancer. So when we started, 12 years ago, we issued 250 diagnostic reports. Since then, over the last 12 years, this year we're on par to do 5,000. So there's been a marked expansion.
5,000?
Yeah, and that's
wow.
we started out, our lab is based in Saskatoon at the University of Saskatchewan. We provided all the services for the Saskatoon Cancer Center within the Cancer Agency. But now it's expanded, about 5 years ago, Regina came on board. So now basically the Advanced Diagnostic Research Lab is like the reference center in the province for molecular cancer diagnostics. And we essentially do all the testing that used to go out to Ontario, British Columbia, Mayo Clinic, even out of the country, is back in Saskatoon. And it's been shown time and again that the cost of doing the tests, keeping it local, is much cheaper. The turnaround time is faster. You have excellent opportunities to develop your own personnel, highly qualified personnel in the province to deliver this kind of testing, and it's absolutely essential for managing modern cancer care. So, as I said previously, Choc'la Cure helped us get going 10 or 12 years ago, and I can't thank them enough. And the story to be told is that, as I said, we've gone from 250 cases or so to 5,000 a year. And their support this year is now essential to maintain access, for people in the province to these tests, because there's this ongoing demand and there's a need to do these tests quicker, with what's called shorter turnaround time, and to build capacity to keep up with the advances in the field, which is I can't thank Choc'la Cure enough for helping us do that.
When you mentioned earlier that you sometimes will give tours to members of Choc'la Cure and to tour your facility, what are those tours like for you as a way to show, hey, look at what your hard work has given us? What are those tours like for you?
Well, they're excellent. I mean, we try to give a little talk, PowerPoint presentation to show, give a brief rundown or review of the history of the lab, show where we're going, show how the testing goes up by around 15 to 20% every year, and then really have an opportunity to showcase what's happening and show members of the public, here's the actual equipment. It's kind of tangible then when you see what these instruments do. We try to show, examples of reports, de-identified reports, to show them, what we're actually doing. And I think you can make a very compelling argument that this work is essential now to improve the diagnosis of cancer and to perform what's called risk stratification. So it's been recognized that what looks the same under a microscope as a cancer can be radically different in terms of its natural history based on the genetics of the tumor. And there's this whole area of what's called companion diagnostics, because rather than just use indiscriminate, non-specific chemotherapy, now there's a lot of movement in the field to deliver what are called targeted therapies. So these are drugs that are specifically targeting the genetic changes in the cells. So there's a big need for us to develop tests to say which patients are eligible for these drugs.
It's just amazing. And for listeners out there, John and I got to Citizen a bit early, and he was explaining to me all the changes that have happened since you were in medical school at the U of S. It must just be crazy, how the advancements, everything just seems to be happening so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it into context, even 7 or 8 years ago, we would be quote-unquote profiling a tumor by looking at 4 or 5 genes. Now we can do 500 genes at a time routinely within a couple of days. And I think for me, the other, beyond companion diagnostics, there's a really a marked improvement in our ability to monitor cancers for recurrence and for progression, and to determine if patients are truly in what's called deep remission, which means that we can no longer detect any evidence of cancer using a very sensitive technique that can pick out one cancer cell in a background of 10,000 to 100,000 normal cells. And if you do that, you identify those patients that are cured, and they don't need to continue on therapy, because all that's going to do is create potential for side effects. And then to me, one of the most interesting areas related to the sensitivity, the monitoring sensitivity, is this whole notion of what's called liquid biopsy, because it turns out that a lot of cancers release the mutated DNA that we sequence, into the circulation, and so we can actually detect tumors in blood samples. Rather than having to take a tissue biopsy, you can actually profile the tumor from a blood sample. So that opens up all sorts of opportunities, for what's called non-invasive diagnostics and monitoring. Yeah.
Breanne and Kim, like when you hear all these advancements, like what's going through your minds as you hear just how the science is evolving so much, and the fact that like you're helping to bring that here to Saskatoon?
I think it makes it very clear that the work we're doing is still important and still needs to continue to be done. Like Dr. DeCoteau said, that if we had not sponsored the lab, 10 to 12 years ago, who knows what could have been for them, but now they are able to do way more tests to better serve the patients in our province.
I think like the far-reaching impact, like Dr. DeCoteau was saying, that like all they need now is a blood sample. You don't necessarily have to book time to come in and get a specimen of a potential tumor. It could potentially receive blood samples from other locations, and that also saves time for people to travel, and right, like sometimes that's a burden, or it can be difficult depending on mobility and things like that. So if they're able to go to their doctor and provide a blood sample and then send it away, that's, I think, the more you can be at home too and have the support of your loved ones while you're waiting for those treatments or the diagnosis and things like that. I think that just helps the patient so much more too, and their families as well.
There must be so many little things that when someone receives their cancer diagnosis and then starts the treatment, like so many little things, like you were just saying, like the fact that maybe you could stay at home as opposed to traveling to Saskatoon to do a treatment or to even do a sample. Like there's so many little things that probably add up to make a difference when it comes to care during cancer.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know when I was going through my treatment, like I had to provide tissue samples and things like that. So even right now, I'm like, oh, this sounds like it could be so much easier like than a decade ago. Like just like the advancements already in our community. Like all my treatment was done at RUH and the Saskatoon Cancer Center. So just knowing how it has evolved for those that are going to be diagnosed or are diagnosed, and being able to target the treatment so that it's just what they need versus like maybe playing guessing game and being like, we're going to try this many cycles and hopefully then we'll do a test to see how it's going. If you're able to do a blood sample after 3 and see if it sounds like sort of that's what we could do, and then they can see how much more, or maybe if they need to change directions at that point rather than doing a full 6 courses of chemotherapy or radiation or whatever it might be. It sounds like it can be a lot more targeted and specific, so hopefully that, as Dr. DeCoteau said, those side effects of the treatment is often what people suffer from more than the cancer itself. That's like once they start treatment, and that can be difficult too, especially if they have to go back and forth a lot.
When the night of the gala happens and you're able to show like all these tangible things, and even things like tours as well, and John, you're able to show like, yeah, this is what your support has given us. Does it, Breanne, I'm wondering, does it make people want to, I don't know if become involved more is the right term, but like you're able to see like, okay, like the efforts, the money I'm donating is going to something like really specific, like it's making a tangible difference. Does that maybe encourage more people to get involved?
I think it definitely encourages more people to get involved. We do a part of our live auction every year is called Inspired Giving. So after our guest speakers speak, we pretty much ask people in the audience to put up their hand to donate money, and we start at $10,000 by bid card down to $100, and it blows me away every year the amount of money that just that part of the gala can make, and the generosity of people in our community, whether they've been directly or indirectly impacted by cancer, but they're seeing examples of ways that treatment is being improved for their loved ones.
Is there anything you can tell people in terms of like in terms of a request for this year, or any hints or about the actual gala night? Like, what can people expect if they come?
So our gala's on November 7th. Our champagne reception starts at 6 p.m. at Dutch Growers, and the evening starts out with a champagne reception, and then we get into a brief intro into our program, and then we have dinner, and one of people's favorite parts is always our chocolate dessert buffet that is all desserts donated by local bakers and artisans and restaurants and businesses.
John is smiling right now at that.
One
of
my favorite parts of the event.
And then we continue and acknowledge any kind of large donors that have made donations to Choc'la Cure throughout the year. And then we get into our guest speaker, which is always definitely a tear-jerking moment for our guests. This year we're honored to have Cassidy and Riley Thiessen talk and share kind of their perspective and their story from their daughter Clark, who went through cancer treatment and passed away this past year. So that will definitely be very emotional for everyone there, but we're so grateful for them that they're willing to share their story and continue Clark's legacy at our event. And then we have a live and silent auction that goes throughout the evening, and then it wraps up with kind of a dance party. So our goal this year is to raise $450,000 for the piece of equipment for the lab that Dr. DeCoteau was talking about. So tickets are still available. They can be purchased on the Dutch Growers website. They're $225 and are eligible for a tax receipt as well from the Cancer Foundation of Saskatchewan. But it's a fun night, and to see how the greenhouse can be transformed from a pumpkin maze 2 days prior to you don't even know you're in a greenhouse, from the decor and the lighting, and yeah, it's a really neat event, and people seem to really love coming because it's kind of grassroots and down to earth. You can show up in your blue jeans and blazer if you want, or some people get really fancy, but it's really a fun evening in support of a really great cause.
And then, John, can you explain what is the actual piece of equipment that this money will be used to purchase?
Yeah, it's called a Genexus ion torrent analyzer, and
that's like the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, they often have cool names, space age names. Yeah. Basically, it's what's called a next generation sequencer. So this is to look at the mutations or the changes in the DNA in the cancer cells. And it does it, as I mentioned, it does it at, in hundreds to thousands of areas of the DNA at a time, as opposed to a few that we could do, several years ago. And I guess the big advantage of this instrument is that there's a few things that it has. It has some robotic capabilities, so it does sample processing automatically, and then does the sequencing and all the computational work in one box. And it dramatically reduces the turnaround time for us to run the test. So I think, as an example, if we look at acute myeloid leukemia, if I can just talk a little bit about that. This is a disease that requires the genetic profiling to be done, in under 5 days. So that's a challenge when you have an instrument that takes, 3 days to do the computational analysis, And so this instrument can turn that around in 24 hours. So, and the advantage of the sample processing piece is that we're becoming so busy, with the volumes that we're handling for other cancers as well, that our technologists, we want them to not be doing manual preparation for the instrument. We want the robot to do that, so they can be repurposed to do, the data analysis and report generating that's so critical. Okay, so basically it drops the turnaround time dramatically in terms of what we were mentioning about our rural and remote populations. So we have a project showing that rather than have a patient fly down from the north to have a bone marrow biopsy done for their diagnosis for acute myeloid leukemia, we can get all that information from a blood sample that they send down to us. All the information is there. It's used to do what's called risk stratification. So that says if you have one set of genetic changes, then you will be expected to have an excellent outcome with standard therapy. If you have another set of genetic changes, then you need to use aggressive treatments like allogeneic bone marrow transplantation. It then says there's what we had mentioned was companion diagnostics. So you'll find, well, you have a specific mutation, so that means that your leukemia is now eligible for one of these very effective targeted therapies. And then we can use that information to monitor with high sensitivity how patients are responding to treatment. So this instrument, sort of the focus of it was initially for acute myeloid leukemia, but then we are also using it for breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, endometrial cancer, so far, and the list will expand.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is just amazing. This is a very probably silly question, but the money that will be raised, your goal was $450,000. Will that be able to purchase the technology, the machine right away? Or it is, yeah? Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah, so that will purchase it right away. So that would be installed right away. We have experience with that technology, so it would be up and running. Basically, we'd have to do what's called an instrument verification to make sure that everything's running appropriately, and then it'd be up and running in our routine workflow, like within a couple of weeks, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I know sometimes, like with fundraising campaigns, it's that this will, this goal will help us reach 20% or 30% of our overall goal, but like, you guys are just going to do this right away.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting and fascinating things about this committee is like, because we sort of get that list and it has different levels of investment opportunities, and we talk with the Cancer Center and Dr. DeCoteau about sort of what the needs are, and knowing about how much we often raise in a yearly campaign, we can sort of be like, well, do we want to do something bigger and go over a couple of years? Do we want to get something a little quicker? Like this one is going to have a high impact on treatment for so many people in the province. So it's like, well, we think we can reach this goal this year. Let's go for it, and let's see if we can get this one faster. And just knowing like the turnaround time, being able to go in on the tours and see the changes and equipment, it's inspiring.
Yeah. I love the ambition.
We are very fortunate, like I mentioned before, we're very fortunate to have the support of so many local businesses in Saskatoon and local donors, and along with Hockey Fights Cancer, Dutch Growers every year hosts various events where the tickets or event costs or price, I guess, go to our yearly campaign. So every other year they've been doing a fall fashion show, which is always a big hit in the greenhouse, and this year they hosted for the first time a ladies' night. So individuals bought tickets, and there was an evening of shopping and snacks and a complimentary beverage, and it was just a really fun evening of people coming together. And we recognized a lot of attendees that had been at our fashion show before, and there was ladies there that had modeled in our fashion show before. And there was one lady even who had just received kind of the all clear that she was cancer free, and she was in attendance. So it's really neat to see the different types of people that our events bring out throughout the year.
Yeah. I love it. All three of you have been very gracious with your time. I thought I knew a little bit about Choc'la Cure, and clearly I did not, because I didn't realize how deep of an impact the organization is making in our community, and I knew nothing about the science. So John, thank you for explaining that to me. Yes, Breanne, before we go.
One other thing that Kim and I also wanted to mention, because we're very, very proud of this, and our committee is very proud of this, that in the year since Choc'la Cure has been going, we've raised over $3 million for the Saskatoon Cancer Center, with every one of those dollars staying in Saskatoon and going to purchase this type of equipment.
That's amazing. That's a lot of money, and that makes a huge difference. So, yeah, this is amazing. So, once again, if people want to get tickets, where do they go?
Tickets can be purchased online on the Dutch Growers website. They have a link there under events, and our gala is listed there. So tickets can be purchased there for our gala, which is taking place on Friday, November 7th.
I'll put a link in the show notes too. Thank you three so much for meeting me on a Sunday afternoon, and this was like really just fascinating and inspiring too. So thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.